Picture this. You are 7 months pregnant. Your husband takes you to a fancy restaurant for your anniversary. His beautiful coworker approaches your table with a drink. You take 3 sips. 30 seconds later, you collapse on the floor while your baby fights for her life inside you. Now here's the twist you will never see coming. The woman who poisoned you had done this before. Your husband knew about it, and he chose her specifically because she had that particular skill. But what they did not know? I used to be an investigative journalist, and I do not go down without a fight. What happens next involves hidden cameras, a custody battle, a public confession in front of 20 witnesses, and a courtroom showdown that ended up going viral with millions of views. This is my story, and trust me, you will want to hear every single word. Drop a comment below telling me what time you are listening and where you are tuning in from. And if this story hits home, hit that subscribe button. You are not going to want to miss what happens next. I thought I was living the dream. That is what I told myself every morning when I woke up in our penthouse apartment overlooking the city skyline. Marble countertops, designer furniture, a closet full of clothes I never wore anymore because nothing fit right over my growing belly. My husband, David Mitchell, was a successful real estate mogul. I was 7 months pregnant with our first child. From the outside, we were the perfect couple. But perfect is just another word for fake. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I used to be someone completely different. 5 years ago, I was an investigative journalist. I exposed corruption. I chased stories that mattered. I had fire in my belly and a byline people recognized. Then I met David at a charity gala. He was charming, successful, and he made me feel like I could have both the career and the fairy tale. I was wrong. The career disappeared first. David said it was too dangerous for a wife of his to be investigating criminals. What would people think? What if something happened to me? He worried so much, he said. So I took a job at a lifestyle magazine writing fluff pieces about home decor. Then that disappeared, too, when I got pregnant. David insisted I needed to rest. Focus on the baby. Be the mother our child deserved. I told myself I was lucky. So many women would kill for this life. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I ignored. The way David constantly compared me to other women. How he would say things like, "You used to take better care of yourself," or "Amber from my office always looks put together. Maybe you could try that." At the time, I thought he was trying to help me improve. I did not realize he was conditioning me to accept less and less of myself. If your partner constantly criticizes your appearance while praising other women, that is not helping you improve. That is them preparing you for replacement. I learned that lesson the hard way. It started small. David coming home later and later from work, smelling like expensive perfume that was not mine. His phone always face down on the table. When I asked about his day, he would snap at me for being needy. When I cried, he told me pregnancy hormones were making me irrational. Gaslighting is like poison. It does not kill you all at once. It seeps in slowly until you cannot remember what the truth felt like. Then came the anniversary dinner invitation. Our 5th wedding anniversary was approaching, and David had been particularly cold for weeks. I was desperate for any sign that we could fix things. For the baby's sake, I told myself, every child deserves a father. David came home one evening with flowers and a smile I had not seen in months. "Sarah, I have been terrible to you," he said, pulling me close, or as close as he could with my pregnant belly between us. "I want to make it up to you. Let me take you to Marcello's this Friday, just like our first anniversary. We can start over." I cried with relief. I actually cried and thanked him for giving us another chance. God, I was so naive. He even bought me a dress for the occasion. A beautiful blue maternity dress that actually made me feel pretty for the first time in months. I should have known something was wrong when he insisted on picking out my outfit. David never cared about clothes before, but I was too desperate to see the trap being set. The night of the dinner, I spent 2 hours getting ready. I did my hair, my makeup, even painted my nails. I wanted to be the woman he fell in love with. I wanted to prove I could still be beautiful even while pregnant. My sister Rebecca called to check on me. She never liked David. She thought he was controlling and manipulative. I defended him every time. "Are you sure about this dinner?" Rebecca asked. "He has been awful to you for months. Now suddenly he wants to reconcile?" "Sarah, it feels like a setup. You just do not understand him, I told her. He is under a lot of stress with work. He is trying, Becca. I have to give him a chance, she sighed. Okay, but call me after, okay? Let me know you are safe. I promised I would. I had no idea how much I would need that promise. David picked me up at 7. He looked handsome in his dark suit, and for a moment I felt like we were a real couple again. He even opened the car door for me, something he had not done in over a year. On the drive to the restaurant, he held my hand and asked about the baby. It felt like a dream. It was a nightmare disguised as hope. Marcello's was exactly how I remembered it. Soft lighting, elegant table settings, the smell of fresh bread and wine in the air. The host greeted us warmly and led us to a table near the window. I felt like I was floating. This was what I needed. This was us finding our way back to each other. Then I saw her. Saw Amber Rhodes, David's marketing executive, sitting at the bar in a red dress that hugged every curve, looking like she owned the place. My stomach dropped. What is she doing here? I asked David quietly. He barely glanced in her direction. I have no idea. Probably meeting a client. This is a popular restaurant, Sarah. You cannot expect the world to avoid places just because we are here. His dismissiveness stung, but I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe I was being paranoid like he always said. We ordered appetizers. David seemed distracted, checking his phone every few minutes. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen and frowned. I have to take this. It is the investor from Chicago. He stood up without waiting for my response and walked toward the lobby. I sat alone at the table, trying not to look at Amber, trying not to notice how she kept glancing in my direction with a smile that made my skin crawl. Then she stood up, and she walked straight toward me. Amber approached my table with 2 champagne flutes in her hands, moving with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you are wanted. She wore that red dress like armor, her heels clicking against the marble floor. I pressed my hand protectively over my belly, suddenly feeling every ounce of my pregnancy weight. Sarah, right? She said brightly, setting one of the glasses in front of me. I am Amber from David's office. He asked me to bring you sparkling cider. Cannot have the real stuff in your condition. My throat tightened. David asked you? She smiled, sliding into the chair across from me. He mentioned you were feeling dizzy lately, thought the bubbles might help settle your stomach. He cares so much about you. Honestly, he talks about you all the time at the office. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they felt like tiny needles. I stared at the glass, condensation already forming on the outside. Why would David ask his employee to bring me a drink instead of doing it himself? Amber must have seen my hesitation. She picked up her own glass and took a sip. See? Totally safe. Just apple cider. Fancy apple cider, but still. She laughed, a sound like wind chimes. So when are you due? 2 months, I said quietly. We are having a girl. How exciting. Amber leaned forward and I caught a whiff of her perfume. The same scent that clung to David's shirts. Girls are so much easier than boys, I hear. Less trouble. Do you have children? I asked, knowing full well she did not. David had mentioned she was only 28 and focused on her career. Oh God, no. She laughed again. I am way too selfish for kids. I like my freedom too much. My body too much. She gestured to herself. No offense, but pregnancy seems terrifying. All that weight, the stretch marks, the hormones. I do not know how you do it. Every word was carefully chosen to cut. I felt my face flush. The baby kicked, as if sensing my distress. I placed my hand over the movement, trying to ground myself. It is worth it, I said firmly. Being a mother is worth everything. Amber's smile never wavered. I am sure it is. For women who want that life. She pushed the glass closer to me. Drink up. You look exhausted. David mentioned you have not been sleeping well. How would David know? He had been sleeping in the guest room for 2 weeks. I picked up the glass. The cider sparkled innocently, tiny bubbles rising to the surface. Amber watched me with those calculating eyes. Later, I would remember this moment and realize she was not just watching. She was waiting. I took a sip. It tasted fine, sweet, crisp, cold. I took another sip, grateful for something to do with my hands. So what do you do at David's company? I asked, trying to be polite, even though every instinct screamed at me to throw the drink in her face and leave. I handle marketing and client relations. Amber examined her perfect red nails. David and I work very closely together. Late nights, business trips, strategy sessions. She paused, letting the implications hang in the air. He is brilliant, is he not? So driven, so ambitious. He works hard, I agreed, taking another drink. My throat felt dry despite the liquid. Some men need a partner who can match their ambition. Amber's voice was casual, but her eyes were sharp. Someone who understands the demands of success, who does not need constant attention and reassurance. The baby did gymnastics in my belly, a sudden flurry of movement that made me wince. I pressed my hand against the spot, trying to soothe her, or maybe trying to soothe myself. "Are you okay?" Amber asked, but there was no real concern in her voice. "She is just active tonight," I said, managing a smile. I took another sip of the cider, draining half the glass. My head felt strange, light and heavy at the same time. "David's taking forever with that call," Amber observed. "Typical. When he is focused on business, the whole world disappears." I wanted to defend him, to say that was not true, but I could not remember the last time David had been fully present with me. Even before the pregnancy, even during our good years, work always came first. The room tilted slightly. I blinked, trying to focus on Amber's face. It blurred at the edges. "You look pale," Amber said. "Maybe you should eat something." "Low blood sugar can be dangerous for the baby." I nodded, reaching for the bread basket. My hand felt disconnected from my body, moving through water. I grabbed a roll, but could not seem to bring it to my mouth. "Sarah?" Amber's voice sounded far away. "Are you feeling all right?" The baby kicked again, harder this time, almost frantic. My vision swam. The chandelier lights stretched into long golden ribbons that twisted and melted. Heat flooded my chest, followed by a wave of cold that made my teeth chatter. "Something is wrong," I whispered. "Something is very wrong." I tried to stand, but my legs would not cooperate. The room spun violently. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white. The glass slipped from my other hand and shattered against the floor. The sound seemed to come from very far away. People turned to look. I saw their faces blur into a collective expression of shock and concern. Someone shouted. A waiter rushed forward. Where was David? Why was he not here? I looked at Amber. She was still sitting calmly in her chair, watching me with that same cold smile. For just a second, the mask slipped. I saw satisfaction in her eyes. "Triumph. You," I gasped. "You did something." Amber leaned forward. Her lips barely moved as she whispered, "You should have stayed out of the way." Then my knees buckled. I fell hard, the impact jolting through my pregnant belly. Pain exploded through my abdomen. "The baby," I tried to say, but no sound came out. "Protect the baby. Someone protect my baby." Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. I heard screaming, running footsteps, more shattering glass. Through it all, one thought pounded in my head with the rhythm of my failing heartbeat. She poisoned me. She poisoned my baby, and no one would believe me. The ambulance siren screamed through the night, but I barely heard it. I floated somewhere between consciousness and darkness, aware of voices and hands and machines, but unable to respond. My body felt like it belonged to someone else. Only the baby felt real. She was moving inside me, restless and afraid. I tried to send her a message through sheer force of will. "Hold on. We are going to survive this. We have to." A paramedic's face appeared above me, young and worried. "Ma'am, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you understand." I could not squeeze. I could not move at all. Panic rose in my throat like bile. "Her vitals are dropping," another voice said. "Get the IV started. Radio ahead for toxicology. This looks like poisoning." Poisoning. The word should have shocked me, but it made perfect sense. I had felt it the moment the liquid hit my stomach. Something foreign, something deadly. Amber's face flashed in my mind, that cold smile as she watched me fall. The ambulance doors opened with a blast of cold air and bright lights. I was moving fast, wheeled through automatic doors into chaos. A hospital emergency room at night is organized panic. Nurses shouted instructions. Machines beeped urgently. Someone cut away my beautiful blue dress, the one David had given me. Later, I would realize that meant something too. He knew. He knew I would not need it after tonight. Dr. Foster appeared in my line of sight. She was maybe 50, with silver hair pulled back and eyes that had seen everything. She shone a light in my eyes, checked my pulse, pressed her stethoscope against my belly. "I need a full toxicology panel, stat," she ordered. "And get neonatal down here now. We have a 32-week fetus in distress." Fetus in distress. My baby. Terror gave me enough strength to move my lips. "Save her," I whispered. "Please save her." Dr. Foster met my eyes. "We are going to do everything we can, but I need you to fight too, Sarah. Stay with me." I tried. God, I tried. But my body was shutting down system by system. I felt it happening. The poison was spreading through my bloodstream, reaching toward my baby. How much had I drunk? 3 sips? 4? Why had I trusted the drink? Why had I trusted anything? The baby's heartbeat filled the room through the fetal monitor. A rapid, frightened rhythm. She was fighting too. My daughter was fighting for both of us. Then I heard his voice. David pushed through the emergency room doors, Amber close behind him. He looked annoyed more than worried. His tie was loosened, his expression tight with irritation. "Where is she?" he demanded. "What happened?" A nurse tried to explain, but David cut her off. "This is typical Sarah behavior. She gets overwhelmed, she creates drama. She probably took something by accident." I wanted to scream, I wanted to sit up and tell everyone he was lying, that his mistress had poisoned me, that this was attempted murder. But I could not speak. My tongue felt thick and useless. Dr. Foster stepped in front of David, blocking his view of me. "Mr. Mitchell, your wife is in critical condition. Unknown toxin in her system. The baby is in distress." "This is not drama. This is a medical emergency." David made a show of running his hands through his hair. "I knew something like this would happen. She has been so unstable lately. Depression, anxiety. I tried to get her to see a therapist, but she refused. Every word was a lie. Every word was chosen to paint me as crazy." Amber stood just behind him, her face arranged in an expression of sympathy that made me want to vomit. Poor Sarah. She always seemed so fragile. I hope she did not do something to hurt herself. Do something to hurt herself. The implication was clear. They were saying I poisoned myself, that I was suicidal, that I was trying to harm my own baby. Medical gaslighting is real. When you cannot speak for yourself, people will speak for you, and they will not always tell the truth. A detective arrived within the hour. His name was Harrison, and he had the tired eyes of someone who had seen too much. He pulled David aside for a statement. I watched from my hospital bed, IV lines running into both arms, monitors tracking every failing system. "Your wife seemed intoxicated before she collapsed," Detective Harrison said, consulting his notes. "Multiple witnesses reported erratic behavior." "Did she take any medications today?" David shook his head sadly. "She has been depressed about the pregnancy. I think she was taking pills. I found some bottles in her bathroom drawer last week." Another lie. I had never taken anything stronger than prenatal vitamins. "Did she ever express thoughts of self-harm?" the detective asked. David hesitated, as if reluctant to say it. Sometimes she would say things like, "The baby would be better off without me," or "I am not strong enough to be a mother." I tried to get her help, but she insisted she was fine. I thrashed against the hospital bed, trying to tell them the truth, but my body would not cooperate. The poison had taken everything from me except consciousness. I was trapped in my own failing body, watching my husband destroy my credibility with every word. Rebecca burst into the room like a hurricane. She had come straight from her law office, still in her business suit, her face pale with fear. "Sarah, oh my God, Sarah!" She pushed past David and grabbed my hand. Her skin was warm and real and solid. For the first time since collapsing, I felt anchored to the world. "What happened?" Rebecca demanded, turning to Dr. Foster. "Who did this to her?" "We are still determining the cause," Dr. Foster said carefully. "But her system shows signs of deliberate poisoning. We have contacted the police." Rebecca's eyes went to David, then to Amber, who stood too close to my husband, then back to me. Her expression hardened with understanding. She knew. She saw what I could not yet say. "David did not do anything wrong," Amber said quickly. "He has been nothing but supportive. Sarah has been struggling mentally." "Who asked you?" Rebecca snapped. "Who even are you? I am a friend." Amber lifted her chin. Someone who cares about this family. You are the mistress. Rebecca's voice cut like a blade. I investigated you. I know exactly who you are. The room went silent. David's face flushed dark red. That is completely inappropriate, he said. Amber is my employee. Your employee who is wearing a $15,000 necklace? The same necklace Sarah's trust fund paid for? Rebecca crossed her arms. I am a divorce attorney. I have seen this exact scenario a dozen times. The only question is whether you planned this together or if she acted alone. I felt a surge of love for my sister. She believed me without me saying a word. She saw the truth everyone else was blind to. Detective Harrison cleared his throat. I think we should continue this conversation outside. Mr. Mitchell, I am going to need you to come down to the station for further questioning. This is harassment, David protested. My wife is mentally ill. That is not my fault. Your wife is poisoned, Rebecca corrected, and you are going to answer for it. As they filed out arguing, Dr. Foster returned to my bedside. She checked my monitors and adjusted my IV. Sarah, can you hear me? I managed the smallest nod. Good. Your toxicology results just came back. Someone gave you a high dose of sedative mixed with a pregnancy termination drug. She paused. This was attempted murder of you and your baby, but we caught it in time. You are both going to survive. Tears leaked from the corners of my eyes, not from relief. From rage, they tried to kill us. David and Amber tried to murder me and my daughter for convenience, for freedom, for money. And they almost succeeded. I woke to the sound of papers being slid under my hospital room door. It was 3 a.m. Rebecca had fallen asleep in the chair beside my bed, her hands still holding mine. The monitors beeped steadily. I was stable. The baby was stable. For now. A nurse picked up the envelope and brought it to Rebecca, touching her shoulder gently. Ma'am, this was just delivered. It is marked urgent legal documents. Rebecca jerked awake, immediately alert despite the hour. She opened the envelope and read the first page, then the second. Then she swore so loudly it woke up 2 other nurses. That son of a bitch, Rebecca said. That absolute son of a bitch. What is it? I managed to croak. My voice was coming back slowly, though my throat still felt raw. Rebecca's hands shook as she held up the papers. David is filing for emergency custody of your unborn baby. He is claiming you are mentally unstable and a danger to yourself and the child. He is using the poisoning as evidence of suicidal ideation. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked down at my belly, where my daughter was finally resting quietly after hours of distress. He wanted to take her. Before she was even born, he wanted to take her away from me. He cannot do that, I whispered. She is inside me. She is part of me. He is trying. Rebecca scanned the rest of the document, her face getting paler with each page. He has witness statements. From Amber. From his business partner. From the restaurant manager. All saying you seemed depressed and unstable in the weeks leading up to the incident. More lies. A coordinated attack. David had not just poisoned me. He had been planning to take my baby for weeks, maybe months. There is more, Rebecca said quietly. He is petitioning to have you committed for psychiatric evaluation. If he succeeds, you will be locked in a facility until after you give birth. Then they will take the baby immediately. Over my dead body, I said, and I meant it literally. If they tried to take my daughter, one of us was not walking away. Rebecca squeezed my hand. I am not going to let that happen. But Sarah, we need to fight smart. David has money, connections, and a team of lawyers. We have the truth, but that is not always enough. Then what do? We prove he did this. We find evidence. We expose him before he can destroy you. A plan formed in my mind, pieces clicking together like they used to when I was a journalist chasing a story. David thought I was broken. He thought pregnancy and poisoning had turned me into a helpless victim. He had forgotten who I used to be. I need my laptop, I told Rebecca, and I need you to contact Marcus Thompson. He is the security manager at Marcello's restaurant. Tell him I need the footage from last night. Rebecca nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. You are going to investigate. I used to expose corruption for a living, I whispered. Time to remember how. The next 72 hours were a blur of medical tests, police interviews, and legal motions. Dr. Foster kept me under observation, monitoring both me and the baby constantly. The toxicology confirmed what she had said. Someone had given me enough sedatives to make me sleepy and compliant, mixed with medication designed to induce miscarriage. The combination should have killed me or at least caused me to lose the baby. But my daughter was a fighter. She held on. David did not visit once. He sent his lawyer instead, a shark named Richard Chen, who smiled with too many teeth and spoke in veiled threats. Mr. Mitchell is deeply concerned about his wife's mental state, Chen said, sitting across from me like we were having tea instead of fighting for my child. He believes the best thing for everyone, especially the baby, is for Sarah to receive professional psychiatric help. Professional psychiatric help means locking me up, I said flatly, so he can take custody without me fighting back. Chen's smile never wavered. That is a very paranoid interpretation. Perhaps that is part of the problem. I learned something important in that moment. When people try to make you doubt your own perception of reality, it means you are seeing something they want hidden. Trust your gut, especially when everyone is telling you not to. Rebecca kicked Chen out 10 minutes later, threatening to report him for witness intimidation. Then she came back with news. I talked to Marcus. He saved the security footage before David's lawyers could have it deleted. She pulled out her phone and played a video. It was grainy but clear enough. There was Amber approaching the bar, talking to the bartender. The bartender nodding, mixing something into a glass, Amber carrying it to my table, me drinking it, me collapsing. That proves she did it, I said, my heart pounding. We can take this to the police. Rebecca shook her head. It proves she brought you a drink. It does not prove the drink was poisoned. David's lawyers will say she brought you regular cider and you must have taken something earlier. The bartender already gave a statement saying he only mixed apple cider. He is lying. He was paid to lie. I know. But we need more than accusations. We need proof, then we get proof. I pushed myself up in the hospital bed, ignoring the wave of dizziness. Where is Amber now? At work, acting like nothing happened. According to the police, she is cooperating fully with their investigation. Of course she is, because David coached her on exactly what to say. I closed my eyes thinking. When I investigated corrupt politicians, I learned that guilty people always make mistakes. They get overconfident. They talk too much. Amber thinks she won. That means she will slip up. What are you planning? Rebecca asked warily. I need to get out of this hospital. I need to do what I do best. Investigate. Find the truth. Expose it. Sarah, you almost died. You are still recovering. I do not have time to recover. I opened my eyes and looked at my sister. David filed for custody in 3 days. That means I have 3 days to prove he tried to murder me. 3 days to save my daughter. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, but you are not doing this alone. I have contacts too. Lawyers, private investigators, journalists who owe me favors. Good, because we are going to need all of them. That night, after Rebecca left to start making calls, I lay in the dark and made a list in my head. Everything David had done. Everything Amber had said. Every lie, every manipulation, every cruelty. Investigative journalism is about finding patterns, and I was starting to see a very clear pattern. David wanted me gone, but not just gone. He wanted me discredited, institutionalized, or dead. He wanted custody of the baby, but not because he loved her, because of money. My parents had left me a substantial trust fund, and it had one condition. If I had a child, that child would inherit everything. But if I was deemed unfit, custody would go to the father. And the person with custody controlled the money until the child turned 21. $5 million. That was what my daughter was worth to David. That was why he had married me in the first place. That was why he had waited until I was pregnant to destroy me. He needed the baby, but he did not need me. Follow the money. It was the first rule of investigative journalism, and it had just revealed David's entire plan. Now I needed to prove it before he buried me alive. Dr. Foster discharged me on day 4 with strict instructions. Bed rest, no stress, weekly monitoring. I nodded and agreed to everything, knowing I would ignore most of it. My daughter was not going to grow up with a murderer for a father. That was worth any risk. Rebecca picked me up in her sedan and we drove not to her apartment, but to a small office building downtown. I expected a detective agency. Instead, she led me into a conference room where 5 people waited. 2 private investigators I recognized from old cases, a forensic accountant, a tech expert, and Marcus Thompson, the security manager from Marcello's. You called in the whole team, I said, surprised. Rebecca shrugged. You taught me to be thorough. Everyone, this is my sister Sarah. She used to be the best investigative journalist in the state. Now she is going to prove her husband tried to commit murder. Marcus spoke first. He was maybe 60, with kind eyes and calloused hands. I have a daughter about your age. When I saw what happened at the restaurant, I could not let it go, so I made copies of everything before the lawyers showed up. Not just the video, credit card receipts, reservation logs, employee schedules. He spread papers across the table. This is the receipt from the bartender. 2 charges that night, one for champagne to table 7, one for sparkling cider to table 12. Your table was 15. So where did my drink come from, I asked. That is the question. Marcus pulled out another paper. I checked the bartender's bank records. He received a cash deposit of $5,000 the morning after your incident, from an account traced back to one of David Mitchell's shell companies. He paid the bartender to lie, I said, to say he only made cider when he actually made the poison drink. The forensic accountant, a sharp woman named Gloria, took over. I have been looking into David's finances. He is deeply in debt. His real estate deals have been failing for 2 years. He took out loans using your trust fund as collateral. If you divorce him, he loses everything. If you die, he inherits. If he gets custody, he controls the money. Everything clicked into place. David was not just evil, he was desperate. Desperate men do desperate things. What about Amber? Rebecca asked. How does she fit? One of the private investigators, a former cop named Jake, pulled up a file on his laptop. Amber Rhodes, 28, marketing executive. But here is what is interesting. 3 years ago, she was engaged to a man named Thomas Brennan. He was wealthy, in his 40s, married with 2 kids. Was, I repeated. Thomas died in a suspicious accident. Fell down the stairs in his home. The wife suspected foul play, but nothing was ever proven. Amber inherited $50,000 from his life insurance. 6 months later, she moved here and started working for David. So she has done this before, Rebecca said slowly. She removes wives and gets paid. Or she thinks she does, I corrected. David probably promised her everything. Marriage, money, the company. But I guarantee once I am gone, she will be next. Men like David do not share power. We need to make her talk, Jake said. If we can get her to confess, even partially, we can use it. She is too smart to confess to police, I said, but she might confess to me. Everyone in the room turned to stare. Are you insane? Rebecca stood up. Sarah, she tried to kill you. You cannot go near her. I am not going near her. I am going to make her come to me. I pulled out my phone. When I was a journalist, the best way to catch a corrupt politician was to make them think they had already won. Overconfident people brag. They slip up. Amber thinks I am broken and helpless in a hospital bed. What if I show her exactly what she wants to see? What do you mean? Marcus asked. I mean, we set a trap. I smiled, feeling like myself for the first time in years. And we catch a murderer. The plan took 2 days to set up. The tech expert, a genius named Dev, created a fake social media post from a friend's account. A photo of me in the hospital looking devastated, with a caption about how Sarah Mitchell was being evaluated for psychiatric care and may lose custody of her baby. We made it look legitimate, tagged the right people. Let it spread. Amber took the bait within hours. She posted a comment. So sad to see mental illness affect families. Praying for David and the baby during this difficult time. The comment got shared and liked. Amber was building her own narrative. The concerned friend, the supportive colleague, the woman who would be there for David when his crazy wife was locked away. Perfect, I said. Now for phase 2. Jake and his partner set up surveillance outside David's office building. We needed to know when Amber and David met, what they talked about, where they went. Corporate espionage laws are tricky, but Jake knew the limits. He could not record inside buildings, but he could follow them in public. Take photos, document meetings. What they documented over the next 48 hours was damning. David and Amber met for lunch 3 times, twice at expensive restaurants, once at a hotel. The hotel meeting lasted 90 minutes. They emerged looking satisfied and relaxed. Jake got photos of them holding hands, kissing in the parking garage, David's hand on her lower back in a way that spoke of intimacy and ownership. But the most important meeting happened in a park. Dev managed to set up a directional microphone, just barely legal, recording their conversation from 100 feet away. I sat in Rebecca's office and listened to the audio. My hands shook as I pressed play. David's voice came first. The custody hearing is in 2 days. My lawyer says we have an excellent chance. Sarah's mental health evaluation is damning. What if she fights? Amber asked. What if she tells them I poisoned her? David laughed. Who would believe her? She was found with toxins in her system after publicly appearing unstable. The detective already closed the case as attempted self-harm. She did this to herself as far as anyone knows. But what about the trust fund? Will you really get control? Once the baby is born and I have custody, yes, $5 million. Plus my company recovers once I am not tied to her anymore. David paused. You will get your share. I promised. How much? Amber pressed. 50,000, same as last time. The recording went silent for a moment. Then Amber spoke again, her voice tight. Last time? What last time? David sighed. Do not play innocent. Thomas Brennan. I know you helped him along down those stairs. His wife suspected, but could never prove it. You have a talent, Amber. I just needed someone with your particular skills. I felt sick. David had known about Amber's past. He had chosen her specifically because she had killed before. This was not a love affair. This was a business arrangement. David hired a murderer to get rid of me. Amber's next words confirmed everything. If you are only giving me 50,000, I want more. I risked everything. I could go to prison. You will not. David's voice turned cold. Because if you talk, I will make sure everyone knows you acted alone. I have lawyers who will destroy you. Take the 50,000 and disappear. Start over somewhere else. And be grateful I am being generous. The recording ended. I looked up at Rebecca, Jake, and the others. They all wore similar expressions of disgust and determination. That is conspiracy to commit murder, Jake said. With that recording, we can get them both arrested. I shook my head. Not yet. David is right. His lawyers will claim the recording is inadmissible or doctored. We need more. We need a confession on record in a controlled environment. We need them to incriminate themselves so thoroughly that no lawyer can spin it. How do we do that? Rebecca asked. We use the one thing David loves more than money, I said, his ego. We make him think he has won completely. Then we watch him gloat. The custody hearing was scheduled for Friday morning. I had until then to set the final trap. It had to be perfect. It had to be ironclad, because I would only get one chance. And if I failed, I would lose everything, including my daughter. The morning of the custody hearing, I dressed carefully, not in the power suit Rebecca suggested, but in loose clothes that emphasized my pregnancy. I wanted to look vulnerable, broken, exactly what David expected. Rebecca drove me to the courthouse in silence. We both knew what was at stake. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Patricia Moreno presided, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. David sat on one side with his team of 3 lawyers. I sat on the other with just Rebecca. The imbalance was intentional. David wanted to intimidate me. It worked. For a moment, I felt the weight of everything crushing down. This was real. I could actually lose. But then I felt my daughter kick. A strong, defiant movement that said, we are still here. We are still fighting. I placed my hand over the spot and drew strength from her. David's lawyer went first. Richard Chen stood and presented his case with clinical precision. He painted me as mentally unstable, citing the poisoning incident as proof of suicidal tendencies. He brought up my supposed refusal to seek therapy. He questioned my ability to care for an infant when I could not even care for myself. Then he called his first witness, Amber. She walked to the stand wearing a modest dress and minimal makeup. She looked professional, concerned, trustworthy, everything she was not. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. I wanted to scream. Miss Rhodes, can you describe Sarah Mitchell's behavior in the weeks before the incident? Chen asked. Amber looked at the judge with practiced sorrow. She seemed very depressed. David was worried about her constantly. She stopped taking care of herself, stopped eating properly. He mentioned she said things like the baby deserves a better mother or I am not strong enough for this. Every word was poison dressed as concern. The judge took notes. I saw doubt creeping into her expression. And on the night of the incident, Chen continued, I was at the restaurant by coincidence. I saw Sarah sitting alone. She looked so sad, I approached to offer support. David had stepped away for a work call. I tried to make conversation, but she seemed distant, disconnected. Amber paused for effect. When she collapsed, I thought she might have taken something before arriving. Did you bring her a drink that night? Chen asked. Yes. The bartender mentioned she looked dizzy. I brought her sparkling cider, thinking it might help. Amber looked directly at me. I was trying to be kind. I would never hurt anyone, especially not a pregnant woman. The lie was so smooth I almost believed it myself. Almost. Rebecca stood for cross-examination. She approached Amber with the calm of a predator. Miss Rhodes, how long have you been having an affair with David Mitchell? Objection, Chen shouted. Irrelevant and inflammatory. It goes to credibility, Your Honor, Rebecca argued. If the witness is romantically involved with my client's husband, it establishes motive to paint my client in a negative light. Judge Moreno considered. I will allow it. Please answer the question. Miss Rhodes, Amber's composure cracked slightly. I am not having an affair. David and I work together. That is all. Rebecca pulled out her phone. I have photographs of you and Mr. Mitchell kissing in a parking garage, holding hands at restaurants, entering a hotel together. She showed them to the judge. Would you like to revise your answer? Amber's face flushed. That is recent, after Sarah's incident. David needed support, so you are having a relationship with him, while his wife is hospitalized, while fighting for custody of their child. Rebecca let that sink in. Tell me, did David promise you anything in exchange for your testimony today? Objection. Speculation. Your Honor, I am trying to establish witness bias. Overruled. Answer the question, Miss Rhodes. Amber shifted in her seat. No, he did not promise me anything. Rebecca smiled. We will return to that later. The hearing continued. David took the stand and performed beautifully. He was the concerned husband, the responsible father-to-be. He spoke about my depression with practiced sadness. He mentioned finding pill bottles in my bathroom. He worried I might hurt myself or the baby. Every word was designed to bury me. When Rebecca cross-examined him, she went for the throat. Mr. Mitchell, why did you tell your mistress about your wife's trust fund? I did not, David said calmly. You did not mention that your unborn child will inherit $5 million? That is family business. Not relevant here. I think it is very relevant. Rebecca pulled out documents. You are $3 million in debt. Your company is failing. You used your wife's trust as collateral for loans. If she divorces you, you lose everything. If you have custody of the child, you control the money. Correct? David's jaw tightened. I would never hurt Sarah or our child for money. But you would hurt her for other reasons? Rebecca pressed. Like wanting to be with your mistress? Objection, Chen said tiredly. Withdrawn. Rebecca sat down. No further questions. Judge Moreno called a recess. I walked out of the courtroom feeling like I had been hit by a truck. Rebecca squeezed my arm. We did okay. We planted doubt. But it was not enough. I could see it in the judge's face. She believed David's performance. Rich, successful man burdened by an unstable wife. It was a tale as old as time. Outside the courthouse, David approached me. He had the audacity to look sympathetic. Sarah, this does not have to be ugly. If you voluntarily agree to psychiatric care, I will make sure you get supervised visitation. Our daughter deserves a healthy mother. Our daughter deserves the truth, I said quietly, and she is going to get it. David smiled, the same charming smile that had fooled me 5 years ago. You always were stubborn. It is what I loved about you. And what made this necessary? He walked away, leaving me shaking with rage and fear. That night, I sat in Rebecca's apartment, staring at my phone. The final trap was set for tomorrow. A fake media event at Marcello's restaurant, supposedly to honor victims of domestic violence. We had sent Amber an anonymous tip that David was planning to leave her. We hoped her anger and jealousy would make her careless. But what if it did not work? What if she stayed silent? What if David won and I lost my daughter before she was even born? Rebecca found me crying in the dark. "Hey," she said softly, sitting beside me. "Do not give up now. We have come too far." "I am scared," I admitted. "What if this does not work? What if I lose her?" Then we try again, and again, and again. Rebecca took my hand. "You are not alone in this, Sarah. You never were, weren't them?" But I felt alone. I felt small and powerless and broken. This was the third time David had crushed me. The poisoning, the custody fight, the hearing, 3 peaks of despair, each one worse than the last. I placed my hand on my belly. My daughter was quiet tonight, resting, gathering strength for what was to come. I needed to do the same. Tomorrow, everything would change. One way or another, the truth would come out. I just hoped I was strong enough to survive it. Marcello's restaurant looked exactly the same as the night I was poisoned. Same golden lights, same elegant tables, same string quartet playing in the corner. But tonight, nothing was what it seemed. The media event was fake, created entirely by Dev and Jake. They had sent invitations to local reporters, claiming a wealthy philanthropist was making a major donation to domestic violence charities. Enough reporters showed up to make it look legitimate. They had no idea they were about to witness a confession. I arrived early with Rebecca. We had wired the entire restaurant with hidden cameras and microphones. Jake and his team sat in a van outside monitoring everything. Marcus had arranged for me to use his security office as a base. From there, I could watch on multiple screens as people arrived. "This is insane," Rebecca muttered, checking her watch. "If this goes wrong, we could all be charged with entrapment. It is not entrapment if we do not coerce a confession. I just need to make them think they have won. Pride always comes before the fall." David arrived at 7 with Amber on his arm. She wore a gold dress that sparkled under the lights. They looked like the perfect couple. No one would guess they had conspired to commit murder. "Phase 1, I said into my phone. "Jake, are you seeing this? Clear visual on both subjects. Waiting for your signal." I waited until they were seated, watched as they ordered champagne, laughing and relaxed. David had no idea the custody hearing verdict was not coming for another week. He thought he had already won. That made him dangerous, but it also made him careless. Time for the bait. Dev sent the anonymous text to Amber from a burner phone. "David is planning to leave you. Check his email. He promised his lawyer he would end things once custody is final." I watched Amber's face as she read the message. Confusion, then anger, then fury. She shoved her phone in David's face, hissing something I could not hear yet. "Turn up microphone 3, I told Dev over the line. The audio feed crackled to life. "What is this?" Amber demanded. "You promised me we would be together." David barely glanced at the text. "Someone is trying to cause problems. Ignore it. Your lawyer emailed you this morning about breaking things off cleanly once the baby is born." Amber's voice rose. "You were planning to dump me?" "Lower your voice." David looked around nervously. "We are in public. I do not care." Amber stood up. "I risked everything for you. I poisoned your wife. I committed a felony. And you were going to throw me away?" Several nearby diners turned to stare. David grabbed Amber's wrist and pulled her back down. "Shut up, right now." But Amber was past caring. The alcohol and anger had unlocked something. "No, you shut up. I did your dirty work. I made that drink. I watched her fall. And you promised me $50,000 and a new life." My heart pounded. She had just confessed. On camera, with witnesses, but I needed more. I needed David's confession too. Time for phase 2. I stood up from the security office and walked into the main dining room. My pregnant belly led the way, impossible to miss. Every eye turned toward me, including David's. The color drained from his face. "Hello, David," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I thought I would join you for dinner. Since I am still legally your wife." Amber stared at me like I was a ghost. You were supposed to be in the hospital. I was. But I am a journalist, Amber. I investigate things. I find the truth. I turned to the room full of diners and reporters, and I found yours. David stood up slowly. Sarah, you are not well. You need to go back to the hospital. I am perfectly well. Thanks for asking. I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The recording of David and Amber in the park filled the restaurant. You will get your share, 50,000, same as last time. Last time? What last time? Thomas Brennan, I know you helped him down those stairs. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Reporters pulled out their phones, recording. David realized too late that he had walked into a trap. That recording is illegal, he said, but his voice shook. Actually, it is not. I recorded a conversation in a public park with proper equipment. Completely legal. I looked at Amber. And you just confessed to poisoning me in front of 20 witnesses. Also legal. Amber lunged at me. You bitch, you set us up. Rebecca stepped between us. You poisoned my sister. You tried to kill her baby. You do not get to be angry about getting caught. Police sirens wailed outside. I had called them before entering the restaurant, telling them I had evidence of attempted murder. Now they burst through the doors with Detective Harrison leading. Sarah Mitchell, he asked. That is me. I pointed at David and Amber. These two people conspired to murder me and my unborn child. I have recordings, witnesses, and physical evidence. Please arrest them. This is insane, David shouted. She is mentally unstable. This is all fabricated. Then explain the recording of you discussing paying Amber $50,000, I said calmly. Explain the photos of you two together. Explain the bartender's deposit from your shell company. Explain everything, David. I dare you, he could not. His face twisted with rage and fear. You were supposed to be gone. You were supposed to be dead or locked away. How did you do this? I used to expose corrupt politicians, I reminded him. You are just an amateur. Detective Harrison handcuffed David first. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. David's eyes met mine, filled with hatred. You will regret this. No, I said quietly. I will never regret saving my daughter's life. They took Amber next. She was crying now, mascara running down her face. He promised me everything. He said we would be together. Men like David do not share, I told her. You were a tool, and tools get thrown away when they are no longer useful. As the police led them out, the restaurant erupted in conversation. Reporters crowded around me asking questions. Cameras flashed. I felt Rebecca's arm around my shoulders, supporting me. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. Not yet, I said. This is just the arrest. Now comes the trial. Now comes the real fight. But for the first time in months, I felt hope. Real, solid hope. My daughter kicked inside me, strong and healthy. We had survived, and we were going to keep surviving. Marcus appeared with a glass of water. You are one tough lady. Your daughter is lucky to have you. I smiled. I am lucky to have her. She gave me a reason to fight when I wanted to give up. The reporters finally cleared enough for us to leave. As Rebecca drove me back to her apartment, I watched the city lights blur past. Somewhere in a police station, David was being processed. His perfect life was crumbling. His company would fire him. His friends would abandon him. His freedom was ending. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. Justice is exhausting, especially when you have to fight for every piece of it yourself. But I had fought, and I had won. The first battle, anyway. The arrest made national news within hours. Wealthy real estate developer and Mistress arrested for attempted murder of pregnant wife. The headlines wrote themselves. By morning, my phone had 300 missed calls from reporters, old colleagues, and people I had not spoken to in years. I ignored all of them. I had one priority, protecting my daughter. Everything else could wait. David's lawyers tried to get him released on bail. The judge denied it. Flight risk, she said, looking at the evidence of his offshore accounts and history of witness intimidation. He would remain in custody until trial. Amber got bail but could not afford it. She sat in county jail, abandoned by everyone who had called her a friend. Turns out people do not like associating with attempted murderers. The trial was set for 6 weeks away, 6 weeks for me to prepare, 6 weeks for the prosecution to build their case. 6 weeks for David's legal team to find any crack in my story. They tried. Oh, they tried. David's new lawyer, a woman named Patricia Vance, who specialized in defending the wealthy and guilty, launched a media campaign against me. She gave interviews claiming I had orchestrated everything, that I had poisoned myself to frame my husband, that I was mentally unstable and manipulative. The court of public opinion is brutal. Half the internet believed her, the other half believed me. People picked it like it was a sports game instead of my life. Rebecca wanted me to fight back, give interviews, tell my story. But I refused. Let David control the narrative, I said. Let him think he still has a chance. The truth will come out in court. That is all that matters. But the stress took its toll. At 8 months pregnant, I was supposed to be nesting and preparing for my daughter. Instead, I was meeting with prosecutors and reviewing evidence and trying not to break down. Dr. Foster put me on modified bed rest. Your blood pressure is too high, she warned. You need to reduce stress or you risk premature labor. How am I supposed to reduce stress? I asked. My husband tried to kill me and people think I made it up. She did not have an answer for that. The preliminary hearings were torture. I had to sit in a courtroom while David's lawyer tore apart my character. She called witnesses who claimed I was obsessed with David, that I had threatened to ruin him if he ever left, that I was jealous and controlling. All lies, but lies told by people David had paid or threatened into compliance. The prosecution called their witnesses too. Marcus testified about the security footage and the suspicious payment to the bartender. Jake explained the surveillance he had conducted. Dev played the recordings of David and Amber discussing the poisoning. But Patricia Vance was good at her job. She questioned the legality of the recordings, suggested the footage had been doctored, implied that I had seduced Marcus and Jake into helping me frame an innocent man. It was sickening, but it was also instructive. I learned how the wealthy escape justice. They hire better lawyers. They control the narrative. They turn victims into villains. I will not let that happen, I told Rebecca after a particularly brutal hearing. David does not get to win just because he has money. You need to focus on the baby, Rebecca said gently. Let the lawyers handle this, but I could not. This was my fight, my daughter's future. I had to see it through. The break came 3 weeks before trial. Amber, sitting in county jail with no money and no friends, decided to flip. Her public defender reached out to the prosecution with a deal. Full testimony against David in exchange for reduced charges. The prosecution took it. They needed her testimony to prove conspiracy. I sat in on the proffer session, watched as Amber, wearing an orange jumpsuit and no makeup, confessed everything. How David had approached her 6 months ago with a plan. How he had researched her past and knew about Thomas Brennan. How he had promised her money and a life together if she helped remove me. Why did you agree? The prosecutor asked. Amber looked at her hands. Because I was stupid. Because I thought I loved him. Because he made it sound so easy. Just a small dose of medication to make her sick. David said it would just cause a miscarriage, not kill her. He said she would be devastated and might hurt herself, and then he could get custody. But you gave her more than a small dose, the prosecutor said. Amber's eyes filled with tears. David told me to. At the last minute, he changed the plan. He said it had to look like suicide, so I added the sedatives. Enough to make her pass out. He said if she died, it would be ruled accidental. So you tried to kill her? Amber nodded. Yes, I tried to kill her. I am sorry. The apology meant nothing, but the confession meant everything. With Amber's testimony, the prosecution had a complete case: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, fraud. David was looking at 30 years to life. His lawyers knew it. They started pushing for a plea deal. The prosecution offered 25 years. David refused. He was convinced he could win at trial, that his money and charm would save him. He was wrong. The trial began on a cold Monday in November. I was 9 months pregnant, a week from my due date. Dr. Foster had advised against attending. Too much stress, risk of labor. But I refused to miss it. I needed to look David in the eye when the jury found him guilty. The courtroom was packed, reporters filled the gallery, cameras lined the hallway outside. This was the trial of the year. Everyone wanted to watch the powerful man fall. The prosecution's opening statement was devastating. They laid out the timeline, the affair, the financial motive, the planning, the poisoning, the cover-up. They painted David as a calculating murderer who valued money over human life. Patricia Vance fought back hard. Her opening statement focused on me. She called me a manipulative woman scorned. She suggested I had planned everything to frame my husband for daring to leave me. She promised the jury they would see reasonable doubt everywhere they looked. But reasonable doubt is hard to create when you have recordings, witnesses, and a co-conspirator's confession. The prosecution called witness after witness, Marcus, Jake, Dev. Each one provided a piece of the puzzle. The video footage showed Amber delivering the poisoned drink. The bank records showed David's payment to the bartender. The recordings captured David discussing the plan. Then came Amber. She walked to the stand looking broken. Prison had stripped away her beauty and confidence. She was just a woman who had made terrible choices and was paying for them. She testified for 3 hours, told the jury everything. How David had seduced her, how he had manipulated her into poisoning me, how he had promised her a future that was always a lie. "Why are you testifying now?" the prosecutor asked. "Because I was wrong," Amber said quietly. "Because Sarah did not deserve what we did to her. Because that baby did not deserve to lose her mother." She looked at me in the gallery. "I am sorry. I know that does not fix anything. But I am sorry." David's lawyer tore into Amber on cross-examination, tried to paint her as a liar looking for a deal. But Amber held firm. She had nothing left to lose. The truth was her only redemption. Then it was David's turn to testify. His lawyers had advised against it. But David could not help himself. He needed to tell his side. He needed to perform for the jury. He walked to the stand in an expensive suit, looking like the successful businessman he used to be. He denied everything. Said he loved me. Said he never wanted to hurt me. Said Amber had acted alone, motivated by jealousy and delusion. He was smooth, confident, almost believable. Then the prosecutor cross-examined him. "Mr. Mitchell, you said you loved your wife, but you were having an affair, correct? That was a mistake. I regret it. You regret getting caught." David's jaw tightened. "I regret hurting Sarah, but not enough to stop." "The affair continued for 6 months, correct?" "Yes, and during those 6 months, you told your mistress about your wife's trust fund, correct? I may have mentioned it. You told her the baby would inherit $5 million, and whoever had custody would control that money, correct?" David shifted. "That is family business. Answer yes or no. Did you tell her about the trust fund?" "Yes." "And did you tell her you were $3 million in debt?" "Yes." "Did you tell her the only way to save your company was to get custody of that baby?" David's composure cracked. "I was discussing options with a trusted colleague. Options that included removing your wife, correct?" "No, I never said that." "Then how do you explain the recording?" The prosecutor played David's voice discussing the plan with Amber in the park. The jury listened in silence. When it was over, David had no explanation, no excuse. He just looked tired and caught. The defense rested. Closing arguments took a full day. Patricia Vance did her best, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. David showed no emotion as the verdict was read. But I saw his hands shake, saw the moment he realized his life as he knew it was over. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. David would get decades in prison. His company was dissolved. His assets seized. Everything he had built was gone. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt exhausted. That night, my water broke. My daughter was ready to be born, and I was ready to meet her. Rebecca drove me to the hospital at midnight, running every red light. The contractions came hard and fast. My daughter was in a hurry, as if she had been waiting for the trial to end before making her entrance. Dr. Foster met me in labor and delivery. "Right on time," she said with a smile. "Your daughter knows how to make an entrance." Labor lasted 14 hours. The longest, most painful, most beautiful 14 hours of my life. Rebecca stayed with me the whole time, holding my hand, reminding me to breathe, telling me I was strong. And I was strong. After everything I had survived, childbirth felt almost easy in comparison. Anna Grace Mitchell was born at 2:17 in the afternoon, 6 pounds, 8 ounces, perfect in every way. She came out screaming, announcing her presence to the world. The nurses placed her on my chest, and I fell in love instantly. "Hello, baby girl," I whispered. "I have been waiting to meet you." She stopped crying and looked at me with dark eyes that seemed too wise for a newborn. In that moment, I made her a promise. You will never doubt that you are loved. You will never question your worth. You will grow up knowing that your mother fought for you before you were even born. Rebecca took photos, sent them to friends and family. Within hours, my phone exploded with congratulations. But I ignored all of it. The only person I wanted to focus on was my daughter. The hospital kept us for 2 days. Anna was healthy. I was healthy. We were finally safe. David tried to call from prison. I blocked the number. His lawyer tried to visit. I refused. Some people suggested I should let him meet his daughter, that every child deserves a father, but not every father deserves a child. David had tried to kill us, had paid someone to poison us, had valued money over our lives. He had made his choice. Now I was making mine. Anna would grow up knowing the truth about her father, but she would not grow up with him in her life. I changed my name back to my maiden name, Sarah Bennett. Anna became Anna Bennett. No connection to the Mitchell family except biology. When Anna was 3 weeks old, I got a call from my old editor at the newspaper. "Sarah, I heard what happened. I am so sorry. I wanted to reach out sooner, but I did not know if you would want to hear from me." Michael had been my mentor when I was a young reporter. He taught me everything about investigative journalism. I had not spoken to him since I quit to marry David. "I would love to hear from you," I said. "I have missed you." We met for coffee. I brought Anna in her carrier, and Michael fell in love with her immediately. She is beautiful, just like her mom. We talked for hours about the trial, about my plans, about whether I would ever return to journalism. "I want to," I admitted, "but I do not know if I can. Taking care of Anna is a full-time job." Michael leaned forward. "What if I told you I am starting a new investigative series? Women who fought back against abuse and won. We are calling it Unbreakable, and I want you to be the lead journalist." My heart raced. "Michael, I have a newborn. I cannot travel or work crazy hours." "You do not have to," he smiled. "Work from home. Set your own schedule. Choose which stories matter to you. We will make it work. Because the world needs your voice, Sarah, and women need to see that fighting back is possible." I looked down at Anna, sleeping peacefully. She would grow up watching me work, watching me fight for justice, watching me use my voice to help others. "Okay," I said, "I am in." Unbreakable launched 3 months later. My first story was about my own experience. I detailed everything: the poisoning, the investigation, the trial. I did not hold back. The article went viral. Within a week, it had been read by 5 million people. Women reached out from all over the country, sharing their own stories of abuse, gaslighting, and fighting back. Some were just beginning their battles. Others had won years ago but never told anyone. I responded to every single message, offered resources, shared legal contacts, reminded them they were not alone. The second story I wrote was about Amber. Not to defend her, but to explore how women become accomplices to men's violence, how manipulation works, how desperation and love can twist someone into a monster. Amber read the article in prison. She wrote me a letter. "Dear Sarah, I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I do not deserve anything from you. But I wanted you to know that your article changed something in me. You saw me as a human being, even after everything I did. You tried to understand why instead of just condemning me. I have been in therapy here, learning about codependency and manipulation, learning that I have a pattern of choosing the wrong men, learning that I am responsible for my choices, even when someone else plants the idea. I will spend the next 10 years in prison. I deserve it. But when I get out, I want to do better. I want to help other women avoid the mistakes I made. Thank you for not just seeing me as a villain. Thank you for seeing the whole person." Amber, I never responded. Some things do not need a response. But I kept the letter as a reminder that people are complicated, that evil is rarely pure evil, that understanding does not mean forgiving. David never wrote, never apologized, never showed remorse. He appealed his conviction 3 times, lost every time. He would spend the rest of his life in prison, and I was fine with that. Anna turned 1, then 2. She was bright, curious, fearless. She had my dark hair and David's strong chin, but she was entirely herself, a unique person with her own personality and dreams. On her second birthday, we moved into a new house, not a penthouse, just a small 3-bedroom with a yard where Anna could play. It was perfect. It was ours. No ghosts, no memories of David, just a fresh start. Rebecca came to the housewarming party. Marcus brought his daughter. Jake and Dev stopped by. Even Dr. Foster came, bringing a gift for Anna. We were a strange family, brought together by trauma, but held together by love. As I watched Anna blow out her candles, I thought about everything we had survived. The poisoning, the trial, the rebuilding. Some days still felt hard. Some nights, I still had nightmares. But we had made it. We were happy. We were free. Anna looked up at me with chocolate cake all over her face and smiled. "Mama," she said, "I love you. I love you too, baby girl. I always will." And I meant it with every part of my being. 5 years after the trial, I received an invitation that surprised me. A women's advocacy group wanted me to speak at their annual conference. The topic was overcoming domestic abuse and fighting for justice. I had given dozens of talks by then, but this one felt different, special. The conference was in the same city where everything happened. I had not been back to Marcello since the night of David's arrest. But the conference venue was 3 blocks away, and something told me I needed to visit. Anna was with Rebecca for the weekend. At 7 years old, she was smart, confident, and completely unafraid. She knew the basic story of her father, that he had made very bad choices and hurt people, that he was in prison, that he would never be part of our lives. She asked questions sometimes. Why did he do it? Do I look like him? Will I be bad like him? And I always told her the same thing. You are not defined by your parents. You are defined by your choices. And you, my love, make wonderful choices every single day. The conference speech went well. 200 women listened as I told my story, how I had gone from victim to survivor to advocate, how I had learned that justice is not always fast or fair, but it is worth fighting for, how my daughter had given me strength I did not know I had. Afterward, a young woman approached me. She was maybe 25, with nervous hands and a bruise barely covered by makeup. "Can I talk to you?" she asked quietly. Of course, I led her to a quiet corner. She told me her story, an abusive boyfriend, threats, isolation. She wanted to leave but did not know how, did not think anyone would believe her, did not think she was strong enough. I listened. Then I shared something I had learned. Strength is not something you have or do not have. It is something you build, one decision at a time, one boundary at a time, one day at a time. I gave her the names of shelters, lawyers, advocates. I gave her my personal phone number. I told her she could call anytime, day or night, that she was not alone. "Thank you," she said, tears streaming down her face. I thought I was going crazy. I thought maybe I deserved it. You do not deserve abuse. No one does. And you are not crazy. You are surviving. I squeezed her hand. Now let me help you do more than survive. Let me help you escape. She left with resources and hope. I would follow up in a week, make sure she was safe. That was my job now. Not just telling my story, but helping others write new endings to theirs. After the conference, I walked to Marcello's. It was early evening, the same golden light I remembered from 5 years ago. The restaurant looked unchanged, but I was completely different. Marcus met me outside. He had retired from security and now volunteered with the criminal justice reform. When he heard I was in town, he asked if I wanted to revisit the scene. "Are you sure you want to go in?" he asked gently. I nodded. I need to. I need to see it without fear. We walked inside together. The restaurant was busy, filled with couples and families celebrating. No one recognized me. I was just another woman having dinner. We sat at the same table where I had been poisoned, the table where everything had changed. I placed my hand on the surface, remembering. "This is where I almost died," I said quietly. "This is where my daughter almost died." "But you did not," Marcus reminded me. "You fought. You survived. You won." I smiled. We won. You, Rebecca, Jake, Dev, all of you. I could not have done it alone. That is the point, though. Marcus met my eyes. You were not alone. You built a team. You used your skills. You refused to be a victim. That is what made the difference. We ordered dinner. talked about his work, my work, Anna. It felt surreal and healing at the same time, taking back a space that had been stolen from me, reclaiming my own narrative. As we left, I paused in the doorway, looked back at the table one last time. Thank you, I whispered. Not to the restaurant, but to my past self, the woman who had fallen here, the woman who had refused to stay down. Thank you for not giving up. The next morning, I visited David in prison. It was the first time in 5 years. I had no interest in seeing him, but I needed closure. I needed to look him in the eye one final time and let him see what he had failed to destroy. The visitation room was cold and gray. David walked in wearing prison orange, his hair graying, his face harder. 5 years in prison had aged him a decade. He sat across from me behind the plexiglass barrier. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. Finally, he broke the silence. Why are you here, Sarah? To tell you that I forgive you, I said. His eyes widened in surprise. You what? I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, not because what you did was forgivable, but because carrying hatred for you was like drinking poison and expecting you to die. I let it go. I moved on. I built a beautiful life. David's face twisted. You ruined my life. No, I smiled. You ruined your own life. I just exposed what you did. There is a difference. He looked away. How is she? The baby. Her name is Anna, and she is perfect. Smart, kind, brave. Everything you are not. I leaned forward. She will never know you, never visit you, never carry your name. You are nothing to her. A biological footnote. That is your punishment, David, not prison. Irrelevance. He flinched as if I had struck him. I stood to leave. Goodbye, David. I hope someday you understand the magnitude of what you threw away. Not me, but the chance to be a good man, to be a father, to be someone worth remembering. I walked out without looking back. 3 months later, I received a call from a literary agent. She had read my articles in Unbreakable. She wanted me to write a book. My full story, from the poisoning to the trial to rebuilding my life. I said yes. The book took a year to write. It was painful reliving everything in detail. But it was also cathartic and necessary because my story was not just mine. It belonged to every woman who had been gaslit, abused, discredited, and told she was crazy. It was a roadmap for survival, a promise that escape was possible. The book published on Anna's 8th birthday. We celebrated with a small party at our house. Rebecca, Marcus, Jake, Dev, Dr. Foster, and a dozen of Anna's friends. Simple, imperfect. That night, after Anna was in bed, I sat in my home office and opened social media. The book was already trending. Women were sharing it, thanking me, telling their own stories. The hashtag became a movement. We were not just survivors, we were warriors. I closed my laptop and walked to Anna's room. She was asleep, hugging her favorite stuffed elephant. I sat on the edge of her bed and watched her breathe. You saved me, I whispered. Before you were even born, you gave me a reason to fight. You made me remember who I was. You made me strong. Anna stirred, opened one eye. Love you, Mama. Love you more, baby girl, always. I left her door cracked open and walked back to my office. There was more work to do, more women to help, more stories to tell. But tonight I was content. Tonight I was enough. The journey from victim to survivor to advocate had been brutal, but it had also been transformative. I was no longer the woman who had married David Mitchell. I was no longer the woman who had collapsed on a restaurant floor. I was Sarah Bennett, journalist, author, mother, survivor, and I was unbreakable. Epilogue, 10 years after the poisoning, Anna asked me the question I had been preparing for since she was old enough to understand. Mama, do you ever wish things had been different? That Dad had been good? That we could have been a normal family? We were sitting in our backyard watching the sunset. Anna was 12 now, tall and beautiful and kind. She looked like me more than David, something I was grateful for every day. I thought about her question carefully. Honestly, sometimes I wish I had never met him. That would have saved us both a lot of pain. But then I would not exist, Anna said quietly. I pulled her close. And that is the impossible part. I would not trade you for anything. Not for safety, not for an easier life, not for anything. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though it was hard, especially because it was hard, we fought for each other, Anna. We survived together. That makes us stronger than most people ever get to be. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I am glad you fought, Mama. I am glad you did not give up. Me too, baby girl. Me too. That night, I updated the final chapter of the book's second edition, added Anna's question and my answer, because the story was not just about surviving domestic abuse or poisoning or a corrupt legal system. It was about choosing life, choosing love, choosing to fight for what matters even when the world tells you to give up. And that is a story that never really ends. It just keeps beginning again every single day.